Hi, everyone. Welcome back to English Podcast Every Day. If this is your first time here, don't worry, you're in the right place. This podcast is for people who are learning English and want to feel more confident, especially when speaking.
Yes, exactly. We talk about real problems that English learners have. Not textbook problems, but real-life problems. Things you feel, but maybe you don't know how to explain.
And today's topic is very special because many learners don't realize something important. Your English is probably better than you think.
I agree with that a lot. I've met many learners who say, my English is bad, but when they start talking, I can understand them very clearly.
Yes, and that's interesting, right? They understand English, they can answer questions, they can explain ideas, but they still feel insecure.
Emma, I think the problem is not English itself. The problem is confidence. People compare themselves to native speakers, and that's not fair.
That's true. And also, many learners focus only on mistakes. They don't see what they can already do in English.
Exactly. If you can understand this podcast right now, that means something. Your English is working.
Yes, Jack. That's a very good point. Listening and understanding is a big skill. And speaking doesn't have to be perfect to be good.
Yes, communication is the goal. Not perfect grammar, not perfect pronunciation, just communication.
So, in today's episode, we want to help you see your English in a different way. We want you to feel more relaxed and more confident.
And we'll share examples, simple ideas, and small tips that you can use in your daily English life.
Yes, Jack, this is what we do here. So if you sometimes feel like, I know English, but I don't trust myself, this episode is for you.
Let's take a deep breath, relax, and start talking about why your English is better than you think.
So, Jack, let me ask you something. Why do you think so many learners feel that their English is bad, even when they can understand and communicate?
That's a very good question. I think one big reason is expectations. People expect themselves to speak like native speakers very fast, and when that doesn't happen, they feel disappointed.
Yes, expectations can be dangerous. When you start learning English, you don't really know how long the process takes. So when progress feels slow, you think you are doing something wrong.
Exactly. And social media doesn't help either. You see videos like, speak English fluently in 3 months, and you think, why can't I do that?
That's true. And then learners start focusing only on what they can't do. They think, I make mistakes, or I speak slowly. But they forget that mistakes are part of learning.
Let me ask you something, Emma. Do you think fear plays a role here?
Oh, definitely. Fear of making mistakes, fear of sounding stupid, fear of being judged. All of these things stop people from seeing their real level.
I agree. I've seen learners who speak very well in private, but when they speak in public, suddenly they feel blocked.
Yes, because the pressure changes everything. Your brain starts thinking about mistakes instead of meaning.
And that's interesting, because communication is about meaning. If the other person understands you, then your English is doing its job.
Exactly. Now, let's talk about something important. There are many situations where learners' English is actually good, but they don't notice it.
For example, simple daily situations. Ordering food, asking for directions, sending messages, watching videos. If you can do these things, your English is working.
Yes, and even understanding jokes or emotions in English is a big sign. That means you're not just translating word for word anymore.
Let me ask you another question. What about listening? Many learners say, my speaking is bad, but their listening is strong.
That's a great point. Listening is often ignored, but it's a huge skill. If you can understand podcasts, movies, or conversations, you already have a strong base.
And speaking grows from that base. You don't start speaking perfectly. You start by understanding, then responding slowly, then more naturally.
Yes, speaking is not a switch you turn on. It's a process, and many learners are actually in the middle of that process, not at the beginning.
But because progress is invisible sometimes, they feel stuck.
Exactly. So maybe the real problem is not English level, but how learners measure their English.
I agree with that. If you measure your English only by mistakes, you'll always feel bad. But if you measure it by communication, you'll see progress.
Yes, of course. And that's something we really want our listeners to understand today. Your English doesn't need to be perfect to be valuable.
Yes, and if you're listening right now and thinking, maybe this is me, then this episode is for you.
In the next part, we'll talk about how you can change your mindset and start trusting your English more. So, Jack, we talked about the problems and the reasons behind them, but now the big question is this: how can learners start trusting their English more?
I think the first step is changing how you talk to yourself. Many learners have a very negative inner voice, and they don't even notice it.
That's so true. They say things like, "My English is terrible," or "I sound stupid." And when you repeat these thoughts every day, you start believing them.
Exactly! But what if instead of focusing on mistakes, you focused on effort and progress? Even small progress matters.
Yes, and progress doesn't always mean speaking faster or using difficult words. Sometimes progress means understanding more, feeling less afraid, or being able to continue a conversation even with simple sentences.
Let me ask you something, Emma. Do you think learners should stop correcting themselves all the time when they speak?
That's a great question. I think constant self-correction can actually be harmful. If you stop every sentence to think about grammar, you break the natural flow of communication.
I agree. Of course, learning grammar is important, but when you're speaking, fluency is more important than perfection.
Yes, and there's something else. Many learners don't allow themselves to speak unless they feel ready. But the truth is, you don't become ready first and then speak. You speak, and then you become ready.
That's a very important point. Confidence doesn't come before action. It comes from action.
Yes, it is. And that's why small, low-pressure situations are so helpful. Talking to yourself, answering questions out loud, or even repeating sentences you hear in podcasts.
Yes, shadowing is a great example. When you repeat what you hear, you start trusting the sounds and rhythm of English.
And over time, your brain stops asking, "Is this correct?" and starts thinking, "Does this make sense?"
That shift is very powerful because communication is about meaning, not rules.
Let me ask you another question. What about comparing yourself to others? How can learners stop doing that?
That's a difficult one, but I think learners need to remember that everyone's journey is different. Some people speak confidently but make many mistakes. Others speak slowly but very clearly.
Yes, and social media often shows only the best moments. You don't see the fear, the pauses, the mistakes behind the scenes.
Exactly. So instead of asking, why am I not like them? A better question is, am I better than I was 3 months ago?
That's such a healthy way to think. And even if the answer is a little, that still means progress.
Another thing I want to mention is using English in real life, not just studying it. When English becomes part of your daily routine, it feels less like a test and more like a tool.
Yes, and tools don't have to be perfect. They just have to work.
Exactly! Sending messages, writing short comments, or having simple conversations builds trust over time.
And Jack, trust is the key word here. When you trust your English, you speak more. When you speak more, you improve naturally.
It's a cycle. Fear breaks the cycle, but confidence keeps it moving.
So if you're listening right now and feeling unsure, remember this: your English doesn't need to be perfect to be powerful.
Yes, it already helps you understand, connect, and learn. That means it's already doing its job.
In the next part, we'll talk about how to keep this confidence after today and not lose it again. You know, Jack, when we talk about confidence and trust, I always think about real-life moments because that's where English suddenly feels very real.
Yes, real life has a way of testing your English without warning.
Exactly! Like when someone suddenly asks you a question in English and your brain needs 2 or 3 seconds to wake up.
That moment is very familiar. Your brain is like, wait, English? Right now?
And in those few seconds, learners often think, oh no, my English is gone. But actually, it's just your brain changing languages.
Yes, and that delay is completely normal. Even bilingual people experience it.
That's something learners don't hear enough. They think fluency means instant answers, no pauses, no thinking.
But we are human. Pauses don't mean you're bad at English. Sometimes pauses mean you care about what you're saying.
Yeah, and here's a funny example. I once talked to a learner who said, I speak English well at home, but outside my English disappears.
I've heard that too. It's like English has a comfort zone.
Yes, English is brave on the sofa, but very shy at the cafe.
That's a perfect description. And the problem is not English. The problem is the situation.
Right. New environments, new people, pressure, all of these things change how we feel.
Let me share a small example. Imagine you're traveling and you want to ask for directions. You already know the words, you've practiced them. But when the moment comes, your voice feels different.
Yes, maybe quieter, maybe slower. And then you start thinking about how you sound instead of what you need.
But here's the funny part. Most of the time, the other person understands you immediately and just answers your question.
Exactly. And after the conversation, you think, oh, that was actually okay.
That actually okay moment is very important. That's proof that your English works in real life.
But learners often forget these moments. They remember the one mistake, not the 10 successful conversations.
Yes, our brains love drama. They don't love balance.
Another funny situation is when learners apologize too much. They say, sorry for my English, even before they start speaking.
Yes, it's like saying, please don't judge me before giving yourself a chance.
And usually their English is totally fine, sometimes even very good.
Yeah, and when you apologize, you put pressure on yourself and on the listener.
So maybe instead of saying, sorry for my English, learners can just start speaking.
Yes, let the English speak for itself.
And mistakes can be funny too. They don't always have to be embarrassing.
Absolutely. Mistakes are stories waiting to happen.
Like when you say something slightly wrong and people still understand, maybe even smile.
That smile usually means connection, not judgment.
So maybe the goal is not perfect English, but relaxed English.
Relaxed English sounds much better than perfect English. And relaxed English grows faster too. Because when you're relaxed, you speak more, listen more, and learn more.
In the next part, we can talk about how to keep English relaxed over time, not just in good moments, but also on bad days.
You know, Jack, after talking about confidence and relaxed English, I think we also need to talk about something very real, something every learner experiences at some point.
You mean those days when English just doesn't work?
Absolutely. Those bad English days when you listen to something simple and suddenly think, why don't I understand this? I understood this last week.
Yes, those days can feel very confusing. You start questioning everything, your level, your progress, even your memory.
And the funny thing is, nothing is actually wrong with your English on those days. Your brain is just tired, distracted, or not in the mood.
Yes, learning a language is not a straight line. Some days you feel fluent, and some days you feel like a beginner again.
And that doesn't mean you're going backwards. It just means you're human.
Exactly. But many learners panic on bad English days. They think, I'm losing my English.
When in reality, English doesn't disappear overnight. It just hides a little.
Yes, like a shy friend who doesn't want to talk today.
And instead of forcing English on those days, maybe the best thing is to be gentle with yourself.
That's a great transition because being gentle also matters a lot when we talk about English burnout.
Oh, yes! Burnout is very real, especially for learners who study every day without a break and put a lot of pressure on themselves.
They turn English into a responsibility instead of a language. Something they have to do, not something they want to do.
And when English becomes heavy, your motivation slowly disappears.
Yes, you start feeling tired before you even open a video or a book.
That's usually a sign that you don't need more discipline. You need a small break or a change.
Exactly. Burnout doesn't mean you're lazy. It means you care too much without resting.
And rest doesn't mean stopping forever. It can mean watching something fun in English, listening without studying, or even doing nothing for a day.
Haha, sometimes doing less actually helps you continue longer.
Which brings us to motivation. Motivation goes up and down, and that's normal.
Yes, motivation is not something you have all the time. It comes, it leaves, and sometimes it comes back quietly.
And when motivation is low, learners often blame themselves.
But low motivation doesn't mean low ability.
Exactly. Sometimes motivation drops because life is busy or because progress feels slow.
And in those moments, it helps to remember why you started learning English in the first place.
Not big goals like fluency, but simple reasons like understanding a song, a movie, or a conversation.
Yes, reconnecting with small joys can bring motivation back naturally.
And maybe the most important thing is this. You don't need to feel motivated to keep going.
Sometimes you just need to stay connected to English, even in very small ways.
Because bad days pass, burnout fades, and motivation always comes back when pressure's gone.
And your English is still there, waiting for you.
You know, Jack, after talking about bad days, burnout, and motivation, I feel like there is one more important idea we should talk about, and that idea is making peace with English.
I like that phrase. Making peace with English sounds much healthier than fighting with it every day.
Exactly. Many learners treat English like an enemy, something they need to defeat.
Yes, like, I will master you, instead of, I will live with you.
And living with the language means accepting that some days will be messy, some days will be slow, and some days will be surprisingly good.
Let me ask you something, Emma. Do you think learners expect too much from themselves?
Absolutely. They expect clear progress every day, but language learning doesn't work like that.
Yes, sometimes progress is invisible. You don't notice it until one day you suddenly understand something that was impossible before.
And those moments usually come when you're relaxed, not stressed.
Which brings us to the idea of good enough English.
Oh, I love that idea. Good enough English means your English helps you do what you want to do, even if it's not perfect.
Yes, if you can express your thoughts, understand others, and survive real-life situations, your English is good enough.
Let me ask you another question. Why do you think learners don't accept good enough?
I think it's because they're afraid of stopping too early. They think if they accept their level, they won't improve anymore.
But actually, acceptance creates confidence, and confidence creates more practice.
Exactly. Fighting English makes you tired. Accepting English makes you curious.
And curiosity is much stronger than pressure.
Now let's talk about daily routines. Not big plans, not long study hours, but small, sustainable English habits.
Yes, because consistency doesn't mean intensity. It means connection.
Like listening to something short, thinking in English for a few minutes, or speaking out loud while doing daily tasks.
And if you miss a day, that's not a failure.
That's just life.
Exactly! English doesn't keep a score. It doesn't get angry if you take a break.
English is actually very patient.
Much more patient than most learners are with themselves.
Let me ask you one last question before we slowly wrap things together. If you had to give one message to our listeners today, what would it be?
I would say this. Your English doesn't need to be perfect to be meaningful.
It already helps you understand the world a little more, and that's something to be proud of.
That's a great message. And I would add this: trust grows with time, not pressure.
So maybe instead of asking, "How good is my English?" learners can ask, "How can I enjoy English more?"
Because when you enjoy it, you stay with it.
And staying with English is what really makes the difference in the long run.
Exactly. English is not a race. It's a long conversation, and you're already part of that conversation.
So, Jack, before we finish today's episode, let's go back to the main idea we started with.
Yes, the idea that your English is better than you think.
After everything we talked about today, it's clear that many learners don't see their real level.
They see mistakes, pauses, and fear, but they don't see understanding, effort, and communication.
And if you can understand podcasts like this, follow conversations, and express basic ideas, your English is already doing a lot.
Yeah, it may not feel perfect, but it's real and it's useful.
We also talked a lot about problems today. Bad English days, burnout, low motivation.
And none of these mean that you're failing.
They mean you're learning.
Every learner experiences these moments, even the ones who sound confident now.
The difference is not talent, it's patience.
And kindness towards yourself.
One of my favorite ideas from today is good enough English.
Yes, because good enough English lets you live your life.
It lets you travel, connect, understand, and share ideas.
And once you accept good enough, you often improve even faster.
Because you stop fighting English and start using it.
And finally, maybe the most important thing, English is not a test. It's not a race. It's a long conversation, and you're already part of it. Even if your sentences are simple, even if your voice is a little shy, what matters is that you stay in the conversation.
So if you're listening right now and still doubting yourself, we want you to remember this one thing.
Your English doesn't need to be perfect to be valuable. It already helps you understand more than you did before, and that means you're moving forward. Thank you for spending your time with us today on English Podcast Every Day.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to follow the podcast and come back for the next one.
We'll be here, talking, learning, and improving together.
See you next time.
Bye for now.